welcome to another program of Issues in the News. To our friends who are joining us on television across the Berbice River, along the east bank of the Berbice River, New Amsterdam, Kanji, and of course, right across the Quarantine Coast all the way to Oriala and Siparuta. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News. And to our friends and followers who are joining us on Freedom Radio from Robb Street, Georgetown, welcome to another program of Issues in the News. And last but not least, to the thousands of you who are joining us on Facebook Live right across the length and breadth of Guyana, the Caribbean, North America, Europe, Asia, and even further afield. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News. And I see Kurt Latish, Nikosi Williams, Carla Thomas, Ayub Khan, Jasoda Sargent, Jack Deo, Howard Samaru, Harry Gill, all of you, welcome, welcome, welcome. Please press the share button on your phone, on your computer, on your iPad, on your tablet, or whatever device you're using to view this program. Share it to your friends, share it to your followers, so that we can have the widest possible audience. And as I would normally say, please engage, use the comment section of the program to raise issues. I will try my best to address them, ask questions, so that we can have an interactive discussion. Share the live. I encourage you to post that as a comment. I see many persons are doing that. And I see some questions coming in. I see Borti Sukai has asked a question. I'm going to answer all of them. So share the live, let us have the discussion. And I want to welcome, I see Vilma da Silva, regional chairperson of region number 2 is with us. So many important people are in the house tonight. So welcome, welcome, welcome. The Ministry of Legal Affairs and the Deeds and Commercial Registry Authority just concluded a 2 days outreach in region number 7, more specifically at Bartica, where we were able to extend services to hundreds of citizens of our country residing in that region. The Deeds and Commercial Registry Authority, as you know, provide a number of important legal services, and it's an important adjunct to our legal system. It is that place where all deeds are filed, where you go to convey your property. If you sell or you give your property by way of deed of gift, it is the institution that passes the transport or the title from one person to another. It is the place where your powers of attorney are filed. It's a place where all deeds are filed, where your deed poll, if you need a change of your name, an addition in your name, addition to your name, a correction of your name, you have to do it by an instrument called deed poll. And that's where that instrument is filed. And all manner of deeds. There are many transactions that can only be done by a deed. And that's why the place is called the Deeds Registry. That is the place where you go. And the Commercial Registry is where you conduct a number of commercial transactions, include, but not limited to, the registration of your business, the incorporation of your companies, the filing of annual returns of your companies, the renewal of business registrations, the registration of mortgages, the registration of bills of sales, the filing of trademarks, of copyrights, and a whole host of other commercial legal transactions. We took those services over the past 2 days to region number 7, and hundreds of persons turned out to access the services. And we made another important commitment, and that is to establish an office of the Deeds and Commercial Registry permanently in the township of Artica, so that the people of Region Number 7 do not have to travel to Georgetown or to Region Number 2, Essequibo Coast, to access these services. They will be able to do it right there in Bartica and in Region Number 7. We are looking at different places to rent, to locate the offices, and hopefully in the not so distant future we will build a building there to permanently house the operations of that office. Significantly, this is a promise that President Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali made to establish branch offices of these important institutions in all of our administrative regions of the country, and we are delivering on that promise. I also used the opportunity as I was in the region to launch the Restorative Justice program in that region. Restorative justice is one of the new methods that are being used in the criminal justice system to resolve disputes outside of adjudication. Of course, it can be done within the court system and outside of the court system, but it is one of those mediation type mechanism where the perpetrator and the victim of the crime can be brought together and reconcile their differences. It allows for the payment of compensation, and it allows for the perpetrator to do a number of things to make amends for the alleged wrong or the wrong that he or she would have committed. It also allows the restorative justice officer to go to the problem itself, the underlying problem, maybe the incident which is before the court or before the police may not be the underlying reason that causes the incident. Restorative justice allows you to go to the incident, the underlying incident, the root cause, and address it. For example, let me give you a quick example so that you understand. A person steals, goes to court, pleads guilty, and goes to jail, serves as a period of imprisonment, comes out, and the cycle is repeated. Steals again, goes to court, pleads guilty, goes into prison, serves the sentence, comes out back again, and still continues to steal. And that cycle can continue, and that person is likely to commit greater offenses. The sociologists and the criminologists have investigated this phenomenon and have found that unless you go to the root cause of why the person stole, there may be a reason why the person is stealing. He may have domestic issues at home. He may have some personal disorder. Unless that issue is addressed and that problem is rooted out, the person continues in a cyclical fashion to engage the criminal justice system without any rehabilitation and without any change of circumstances. So you have a career criminal basically being created. And it leads to recidivism, which means simply the repeat of offenses. Restorative justice allows you to go into the home, go into the office, go into the place where the wrong originates and find out if there is any causative factor that has led to the illegal conduct. And we are implementing this system not only in the formal justice system of our country, but we are doing it outside of the formal justice system, in our educational institutions, for example. We are training our teachers, we are training prosecutors, we are training magistrates, we are training police officers, we are training our probation officers, we are training community leaders, we are training religious leaders in restorative justice so that they can practice it informally in their everyday lives. And it has worked in many, many legal systems, and our Caribbean Court of Justice, our highest court, is recommending that it be implemented across the region. And Guyana is one of the first countries leading the initiative in that regard. I made another commitment that the Director of Restorative Justice in the country, Mr. William Boston, will return to Bartica, will return to Region 7 to initiate training programs so that we will train as many people as possible in that region who will then work in the region in the restorative justice system and outside of the system. As I said, we are going to locate an office at the probation department office in Bartica, and the two services will be twinned, and the restorative justice officer and the probation officer will work along with the institutions in the region, the Guyana Police Force, the court system, etc., so that we can have restorative justice being implemented in that region. So it's a very good initiative, and the people of Region 7 responded enthusiastically to the initiative and are very willing to become part of the process. So that was a good outreach we had, and I want to report there are so many people who look at issues in the news. Hundreds, if not thousands of people in that region. They are very familiar with this program, and if you're looking at the program again, I want you to continue watching from Region 7. There are so many people who continue to watch this program, and that is what inspires me. That is what pleases me greatly, because people say that they are learning so much from this program. And that is one of the main purpose of this program, to educate us, and we can learn together. None of us would have a monopoly of knowledge, and there is always an opportunity to learn, and when that opportunity presents itself, we must grab it with both hands. As I said, someone has asked me a question, and let me answer it immediately. The question is, and I'm almost quoting what the gentleman said, can the Burnham Constitution be replaced? I have said on many occasions, and I'll repeat, what is regarded as the Burnham Constitution, which is the 1980 Constitution, underwent fundamental transformation and reform during the 1999-2001 constitutional reform process. And people don't seem to understand that. We had that exercise, the entire country participated, and over 150 odd changes were made to that constitution. The changes were intended to devolve power away from the center of power. And in that constitution, the center of power, or the epicenter of power, was the executive presidency and the executive government. And in 150 odd amendments, vast amount of powers were removed from the presidency and the executive government and placed in different organizations. In particular, the parliament of our country where both the opposition, the elected opposition, and the elected government function together. A lot of powers that never existed in the commissions, the service commissions, were taken from the president and placed in the service commissions. For example, the appointment of a commissioner of police, the appointment of the Public Service Commission, the appointment of the Teaching Service Commission. These commissions used to be appointed by the president, consulting with the leader of the opposition. Now that happens in relation to certain nominees on that commission, but a number of nominees also come through the Parliament Appointment Committee, which is a body that both the opposition and the government are part of, and they don't sit down and make the appointment. They are to consult with important representative organizations in the country before they decide who the nominees are going to be. And they also have to vote on those nominees because the decisions of those committees are made by vote. So I give you that example. You have the position where the Chief Justice and Chancellor's appointment can now only be made by an agreement with the leader of the opposition and the president. That was never in the Burnham Constitution. Now that is there. So you have the leader of the opposition wielding a lot of power. Of course, the formula has not worked, and that's public knowledge. It has not worked in 25 years, and I am doubtful whether it will ever work. So my position would be that the Burnham Constitution does not exist anymore. And we also have to be careful with what are you changing about a constitution. A constitution is a country's fundamental document. People want constitutional change, or they call for constitutional change because they feel that certain societal problems, their solution lies in constitutional change, and that may not be so. You can have whatever constitution you want. If you have a band of people who do not respect democracy, who do not respect the rule of law, who want to rig elections, then a constitution can't help you. No piece of paper can help you. So we also have to be careful in what we are clamoring for. We must understand what a constitution is and to what extent we can change the constitution. Because when you change the constitution, you're altering your entire legal system. When you alter your legal system, you can alter it to the detriment of the public good, and which may not be the best thing for your country. But currently, we are going through another constitutional reform process, as the public is well aware. And again, we have said that the main mechanism by which the constitutional reform will conduct its work is by public consultations. So we are going back to the people again. And the people will determine what they wish to change in the Constitution. Of course, the Constitutional Reform Commission is a broad-based commission by itself, and recommendations will come from within the commission. And you know how it is constituted. It has political representations, it has private sector representations, it has representations from the labor movement, from the religious communities, and from the Amerindian community. So it's quite a broad-based commission. So while no doubt many constituencies are already represented in the commission itself, the commission still is mandated by the Constitutional Reform Commission Act to consult widely with the population and with stakeholder organizations across the country and come up with recommendations. So the person who is asking this question, please be vigilant, and when the Constitutional Reform Commission begins its public outreaches and public consultation exercises, make sure that you are part of it so that your input will be received. So I see making the news a call from the Alliance for Change and the Working People's Alliance for a referendum to be conducted on the 2016 profit sharing agreement. And that is in the news. These two agencies are asking for a referendum to be conducted in relation to the PSA. I assume the referendum is to poll the public's view on the PSA and whether it should be renegotiated. Now, let me deal with the messengers as well as the message. So, I don't know what the WPA is. It used to be a very vibrant, powerful political party in this country, and it played a significant historic role in challenging Burnhamism and the Burnham dictatorship. And I'll recognize the WPA of yesteryear for the role that they have played. The WPA now cannot, by any standard, be described as a political party. The WPA has no membership. I don't think they have kept a meeting of the party in years. I don't think any of the persons who are speaking as and for the WPA can produce a membership card that is in force, that is valid. I don't think they can produce a membership register that is valid. So on what basis are they describing themselves as a political party? If they call a meeting of their membership, I don't think anyone will turn up because they have no members. What you have are about 4 persons or 5 persons, all of whom I can count and name on my fingers, who are masquerading as the WPA. Obviously, I know them to be former members of the WPA when the WPA was a party, but that is over 30 years ago. And they are all way into their, all of them, at least that I know, who are now associated with the WPA, are 65 years and over. There's no young person who can stand up and say, I am a WPA member. None. And as I said, even those who are pretending to be WPA, they can produce a membership card. It would be a good thing if they can prove me wrong and produce a membership card that's up to date. They may produce one from 1985 or 1977, but let them produce a membership card updated as of 2024. Of course, after listening to me, they may take up the challenge and go and print one and date it today's date or tomorrow's date or last week's date just to meet the challenge that I put out. So the Alliance for Change now everyone knows that the Alliance for Change is the party who was part of the coalition government that signed the PSA in 2016. In fact, it was the leader of the Alliance for Change in particular who was the subject minister who signed the PSA of 2016, Raphael Trotman. So it is the AFC who essentially signed that 2016 PSA. Now they're asking to go for a referendum on the signing of the document and the terms of the document. The obvious question that one must ask is, why go for a referendum now? Why didn't you go for a referendum before you signed it? They did not even consult with the main opposition in the parliament, the People's Progressive Party Civic, when they signed this document. They never told you, the people of Guyana, that they are about to sign this document. They never even disclosed it to their own supporters that they were going to sign this 2016 document. And after they signed it, they didn't disclose it either. They hid this contract for nearly 2 years without telling the people of Guyana that they have signed a contract that is perhaps the most important document ever signed in the history of Guyana. They hid that from you, the people. They hid that from all of us. It is the People's Progressive Party in opposition who got wind of the information, and we went and we got a copy of it in the deeds registry. That is where we got it from. And it is us who made it public. You know this story very well. They collected $18 million as a signing bonus, United States dollars, that they never disclosed. They never deposited it in the consolidated fund as is required by the constitution of our country. They deposited it in a secret account at the Bank of Guyana. We had to find that out through all type of methods. And even then, the finance minister of the coalition government said that he thought that it was a gift, a political donation for his party. All of this that I'm outlining were done in secrecy, behind the backs of the Guyanese people. Now, 2016 and 420, we are in 2024, 8 years after, now you want to go and do referendum? I have never seen duplicitous conduct like this in my entire life. Every time you think that these people can be more outrageous, they say something more outrageous. They prove you wrong. Now, the, so that's the first point I want to make. The second point I want to make is, what will a referendum achieve? Our government is on record repeatedly, in government and out of government, that this contract is one of the most lopsided agreements in the world. We would like to see it renegotiated. And we have said that repeatedly. I have no doubt that every sensible Guyanese would want the contract renegotiated. You don't need a referendum to tell you that. I am saying to you that a majority of Guyanese, in fact any sensible Guyanese, would want this contract to be renegotiated. However, the contract itself says, in about 10 clauses, expansively sets out, the contract itself expansively sets out in a number of clauses that it cannot be altered unilaterally. It can only be altered with consent, by both parties consenting or agreeing. The other party in the contract has made it repeatedly clear that they are not prepared to renegotiate. So what you want a government to do? Breach the contract? Put a gun to the head of the other side to come to the table to renegotiate? We are living in a world where rule of law is instrumental to your democracy. The rule of law is instrumental to your economic success. Obeying the rule of law is instrumental in creating the type of investment climate that will conduce to large investments coming to your country. You want us to disregard all of that and bully and coerce the people to renegotiate the contract? You want us to apply duress to them? You want us to breach the contract? What will that do to the credentials of Guyana as an investment destination? What signal will that send to the world about Guyana? Venezuela is right next door. Venezuela did similarly. They nationalized the oil industry. They tossed aside all the contracts that they had with the oil operators, disregarded them, tossed them aside. Today, Venezuela is one of the pariah states of the world. Today, starvation is taking place in Venezuela. Today, over 9 million refugees, Venezuelan citizens who were living in luxury and comfort before, are seeking a meal as refugees in other countries. That is what happens when you don't obey the rule of law and you want to expropriate people's property and you want to disregard contracts. And you can look around the world to countries that have traveled this road. Mugabe did it in Zimbabwe. Burnham did it in Guyana. Where did it lead us? We have come from that. We don't have to look outside of Guyana. Where did it lead our country? We became a dictatorship, a bankrupt economy, and our people were starving, and they left this country by the droves for greener pastures. When governments behave in the way they wish us to behave, that is the consequence. You see, they are dictatorial by themselves. They are innately dictatorial. And that is why they can make these ridiculous calls. I must, in the same breath, tell you or remind you that because of the terms and conditions of this contract, we have done a standard PSA which we consulted widely on, and it is available for public perusal. And we have committed that all contracts going forward will be done in accordance with that model that we have created. And in the consultations, even our most passionate critics, have expressed the view that it is a fair PSA that we have now in place that will govern us for the future. We have also put in place a new modern Petroleum Activities Act that is to regulate the industry by exacting and extracting from the operators in the industry a high level of responsibility and performance in accordance with international standards. In the industry, from the time they enter the industry to even when they are about to leave, what they have to do. We are working on an oil spill prevention, preparedness bill that we will take to our parliament very shortly to protect the environment from oil spill. Again, this is being done in accordance with international standards by experts guiding us. We have a local content law that is there to protect local employment, to guarantee local employment. And we will move a number of amendments very soon to that piece of legislation to strengthen it even further. That is what we can do legitimately and democratically. We can't drag people to the table and beat them on the head to renegotiate a contract. That is not how the modern civilized world operates. So to what end are you carrying out this referendum? When the people say change it, what are you going to do with the referendum? How does that affect the contract? You have signed the contract, you have bound the people to the contract. The WPA was part of the coalition government. The AFC was part of the coalition government. And its leader, Raphael Trotman, by signing that contract, has bound the people of Guyana to the contract. What you want to fool people and tell them now? You want them to go and breach the contract? Is that what you're telling the people? Having signed the contract behind their back and bound them to it without them knowing. Now you want them, you're seeking refuge in the people's arms, and that is how they are misleading and manipulating people. You didn't consult with the people when you were signing the contract. You want to come out of a contract that you can't legally come out of. You're running to the people now. You want them to help you. Did you consult with them? No, you didn't. In fact, they didn't even know. And after you sign it, you never tell them. These people are unelectable. They are unelectable. They have no credibility, none at all. And that moves me to the other issue. And that is Nigel Hughes announcing that the AFC will have to conduct a review in order to determine whether it did anything wrong during the 2020 elections. Every time this guy speaks, he loses credibility. So it's a good thing. I'm happy that he's speaking every week, because every week he says something that is more ridiculous than the previous week. Nigel Hughes, an outstanding lawyer who has been living in Guyana his entire life and who was very much present during the 2020 elections and the aftermath of that elections, who is married to Cathy Hughes, who was a minister in the coalition government, whose party was a party in the coalition government, a party that contested the elections as a coalition. He was a former secretary, chairman of the party. When the party was in power and part of the government, he was getting a lot of clients from Texas and so on. This guy suddenly doesn't know what role the AFC played in the multiple attempts that were made to rig the 2020 elections. Nigel Hughes, a lawyer, doesn't know that. You understand what I'm saying? You see how incredible, how outrageous, how hypocritical, how duplicitous these people are? He has to conduct a review. You are living in the United States. You are living in Canada. You are living in England. You are living in Netherlands. You are living in wherever you are looking at me from. You were not here during the 2020 elections. But you saw and you know what happened. You know the role that the AFC played. Nigel Hughes was right here, a lawyer, right here. He doesn't know. He has to conduct a review to determine what they did before he can consider an apology. He representing in the court the people who were charged with the fraud and who were acting in concert with his party and the coalition government. They were acting in concert, that's what you call it in law. They were part of a joint enterprise to rig the elections. Nigel Hughes is appearing for them in the court. But he doesn't know what AFC did. He didn't see his wife every afternoon on television, on Facebook, defending the attempts at rigging the elections. He didn't see Cameron Ramjatan on multiple Facebook page and TV attempting to rig the elections. He didn't see his Prime Minister Moses Nagamotu trying to explain how a quarter bottle rum have to be on a shelf as they were trying to explain the no confidence motion. He doesn't know, Nigel Hughes, that he advised that 33 is not a majority of 65. He doesn't know he did all those things. He can't remember all these things. He can't remember Comrade Ramjatan going to the Home Affairs Ministry to bid goodbye to the Home Affairs Ministry staff and telling them that they have lost the elections. And when his confederates at Congress Place told him, no, we haven't lost. Ramjatan makes an about turn, goes on a television program in Trinidad with a Trinidadian broadcaster and says he was saying farewell because he was leaving to go to the Prime Minister's office to take up the position of Prime Minister of the country. All of us saw those images. All of us heard those things. Nigel Hughes hasn't. And he wants to conduct a review. That is the kind of duplicitous people that you're dealing with. How can you put government in the hands of these people? Anything they say, you can rip it apart. You can rip it apart. Listen to what Dominic Gaskin said in a Facebook post. Dominic Gaskin was a leader of the AFC. He is Mr. David Granger's son-in-law. He was the Minister of Business of Guyana in the coalition government. As I said, he was a leader of the AFC. And this is what he said on June 20th, 2020. The claims of fraud, he's speaking of the AFC and APNU. Listen to me carefully, I'm quoting the man. I have it right here. So Nigel Hughes could read this. He could ask Gaskin what, if he doesn't know, what they were to apologize for. This is Gaskin speaking. I quote, "The claims of fraud were grossly exaggerated and unfortunately designed to fool party supporters who placed their faith in the coalition into believing that there was actual evidence of serious election rigging by the People's Progressive Party Civic. They claim that vast numbers of discipline services ballots were deliberately not stamped and therefore rejected is a case in point. Having failed at the polls for over 2 decades, the People's National Congress never commanded the electoral strength to win an election on its own and was able to squeeze past the PPP because of its alliance with the AFC. Unlike the PPPC and the PNC, the AFC doesn't have a stranglehold on any section of the electorate. Instead, it relies on a swing vote that is more discerning and less forgiving than the constituents of the two larger parties. The first part of it is important. The claims of fraud were grossly exaggerated and unfortunately designed to fool party supporters who had actually placed their faith in the coalition into believing that there was actual evidence of serious election rigging by the People's Progressive Party. Nigel Hughes doesn't have to go very far. He has to just consult his colleague, Mr. Dominic Gaskin, and he will tell him of some of the things that the AFC should apologize for. So let's continue. Last week, I had a very important meeting with the Guyana Bar Association, the executive of the Guyana Bar Association, and we discussed a number of fundamental issues of mutual importance. Among them was the consultations that we agree will take place on major bills concerning the legal sector. We already consult on a regular basis, but what the Bar Association was asking for is if we can have a defined limit in terms of the period for the consultation, because sometimes they say that sometimes they don't get sufficient time to do the consultation, to do the review of the bills and discuss. So we agree on a time frame because, as I said, we welcome consultations on important bills. And the bar is an important stakeholder in relation, in particular, in respect of laws, bills that are related to the legal sector. So every opportunity we get as a government, we would like to engage the Bar Association. So we are very pleased that we have agreed to a period of 4 to 6 weeks in respect of consultation on bills that will affect or are likely to affect the legal sector of our country. What I didn't raise with the bar, though, and I thought about it, but I intend to raise with them, is the issue of continuing education. We have a serious problem in Guyana. I just concluded an outreach, and every day, almost every day, persons call me from in Guyana and from overseas. Many of you are listening to me, to complain about lawyers' conduct. I get that complaint on a regular basis, and I have to engage the Bar Association on it. I don't have, and I keep explaining to people all the time, I don't have any supervisory role over lawyers in the country. I have no disciplinary powers over lawyers in the country. There is a disciplinary authority established under the Legal Practitioners Act, and it sits, it functions, and it has certain powers to discipline lawyers after hearing complaints and hearing both sides. It is presided over by lawyers too. But outside of that, I really can't do much when people lodge these complaints, and they are many. There are many. I sometimes would call the lawyers and just get an update. But outside of that, my powers are very, very limited. I think that one way of addressing this issue is continuing education in the legal profession. In other professions, you have continuing education, which is mandatory in certain professions. In the legal profession in certain countries, you have continuing education also being a mandatory obligation. I believe the time is right now in Guyana for us to consider that as a serious option. In any event, we are passing too many laws, too many important laws, not to have continuing education. And the government is prepared to partner with any profession, in particular the legal profession, in ensuring that there is continuing education in the profession. And I believe it will help to raise the standards of the profession. It is something that I will discuss more fully with the Guyana Bar Association, and if it is, I hope that they will agree, and I can't imagine that they will not want to be, because the legal profession is a great profession, it's a noble and honorable profession, and I can't imagine that they would reject the idea of continuing education. In any event, lawyers are always expected to continue reading, because that is the nature of the profession. You have to keep reading. The law changes with alarming frequency, and if you don't read and you are not adept and up to date, then you will be left behind and the law will move ahead. So I don't anticipate any great resistance to this idea. In fact, I think that I'll get their full cooperation. But I am already out of program time. I want to thank you very much for being with me for the last hour. We have discussed a number of important issues, and I want to wish you a happy and healthy week, and please enjoy the rest of the evening, and may God bless you and your family. Thank you very much. See you next week.